Well, good morning. So today I think I'll talk a little bit about the idea of reality and maybe starting out with the idea that what we think of reality is really kind of like make believe. So there's two parts to that. First part is to make or construct or create, and the second part is believe or a mental process, a mind process. So in that formulation, reality is make believe. That's not an uncommon position, particularly in Eastern philosophy, where frequently reality is referred to as an illusion. Uh, it, when people hear that, they hear the idea of reality as an illusion, either they just sort of shake it off or they begin to intellectually mouth it as if it's a truth without having any real experience of it. Uh, you know, uh, Being able to really make some sort of sense out of the idea that reality is an illusion. uh, Particularly in variations of Buddhism and Indian philosophy, reality is seen as an illusion. So, uh, my dog is barking at the door. He really wants to come in and join me. So, excuse me while I let the dog in to the room. You want to see my dog? Come here, Iggy. Come on. Come here. Oh, he's not interested in being on screen today. So, reality is make believe, reality is an illusion. So, but we have this really pretty grounded, firm sense that what we're experiencing is real. So, how does that come about? How do we get to that place where we have this firm sense of reality as being real? So, there's a couple of ways. You could divide the that firm sense into two possible ways. One is we have a feeling that this is real, and the other is that there's some sort of objective, uh, you know, uh, some sort of objective nature that is real. Uh, so, for instance, an example of that would be when we're sleeping and we have a dream, and in the dream we're flying. That experience in the dream may feel very real. I mean, I'm sure everybody has had an experience like that at some point or another. But when we wake up, objectively, we were laying asleep in bed. And so, objectively, we probably were not really flying. Okay. So, uh, there's the feeling of reality. Well, right away, we can see that the idea of the feeling of reality is not really a dependable way of determining whether something's real or not. Because obviously sometimes it feels real when in fact it's not. People who have had things like LSD experiences and the dream work that people do, all of that establishes that the feeling of reality is not necessarily trustworthy. So how did we arrive at this idea of reality to begin with? So to begin with, reality is the result, or what we objectively believe is reality, is the result of a lifetime of conditioning and educating, and and the conditioning is arrived at through consensus. So there's been you might say an agreement to see certain things in certain ways and to be able to talk about those things in those ways. There's been an agreement, and that agreement has led to training and education. And so we're educated to believe certain things about the world. And as a result of that, those things have become real for us. So, uh, so that reality is really what it has been determined to be by all these years and years of conditioning and training that we've gone through. Uh, so, how did we arrive at some sort of consensus about what's real? Well, an imaginary, example of that would be, let's suppose that we've all decided to call this round thing sitting in front of us a ball. It's a ball. And so, how did it get to be a ball? So, suppose you have a group of people sitting around this object, and from different points of view, the object has all kinds of different qualities. Maybe, just for the sake of this example, maybe one of the qualities is that each direction that a person is viewing the ball from has a different colored dot on it. And so, you know, I've got a ball with a green dot, a blue dot, a yellow dot, and a white dot. And depending on what perspective or direction I'm seeing the ball from, we can all agree on certain things about the ball. It's round and otherwise red. So we have decided, as a matter of consensus, to refer to this object as a ball. So the early stages of learning, the child gets a book, Dick and Jane are playing with the ball, and then there's a picture of a round red circle. And so we've all agreed that from now on, when we see a round red circle, regardless of what other characteristics it has, to refer to it as a red ball. This is just an example. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of holes in the example, but the point is that that's how we came to the position of all agreeing on calling various aspects of what we call reality by very specific and very specific kinds of titles, and seeing specific forms to represent those objects. That's how we've gotten to be in that place. So back to the idea that reality is make-believe. In other words, reality is constructed in the mind, and it is, based on conditioning, a lifelong educational process of consensual, agreement about what various different objects are supposed to be, look like, the images that represent them, the labels that represent them, all of these things are part of that whole idea that reality is make-believe. It's made, constructed, created, and it's made, constructed, and created in the mind. Okay, so does that mean I should be able to stand on a railroad track and just simply decide that, the train is unreal and it's just make-believe, and so I can just stand there and it'll just pass right through me? I wouldn't try that experiment. That probably won't turn out well for you. So that makes me think of a movie reference. Being a big sci-fi fan or whatever, the movie reference comes from The Matrix. And in The Matrix, when a person, the Matrix exists in a person's mind. It is truly make-believe and unreal. And there is a real, the world of the real, but when you're in the Matrix, you're actually getting to be in the Matrix as a result of being plugged into this vast computer network, and your brain is doing all the work of creating the reality that you're experiencing, while you're just sort of sitting inside of a vat-like device and acting as a battery. So, okay. And in one scene in The Matrix, the person who's been put into the Matrix from the world of the real, in other words, he's intentionally plugged in to enter into the Matrix, is fighting somebody, and when they come back out of the Matrix, in other words, they're unplugged from the network, they have blood coming out of their nose because they got hit in the unreality of the Matrix, and the result is there is blood in the reality of the real world. So the character, one of the main characters says to the fellow who's been put into the matrix, yeah, if you die in the matrix, you'll die in the real world. Okay. So in a way that just sort of, I mean, that's probably an overly complicated thing that only people who have watched the movie The Matrix are going to make much sense out of. But anyway, uh, you know, if you believe something strongly enough, in other words, you have totally invested yourself in that belief as a result of a lifetime of conditioning, your mind will create a reality that will affect you in the world of the make believe. And that world of the make believe will create a reality that will affect you in, you might say, in the objective sense. It's as if I felt, or they say this about dreams, if you die in a dream, you'll die in the real world. I don't know that that's actually true, but if you're injured in a dream and then you woke up and you had a sprained ankle, that would be the equivalent to what we're talking about here. So, uh, what you could say that what you believe about a situation will determine how you're going to think and feel in that situation. And so if you believe that something is going to cause you a great deal of pain when you engage it, if you believe that strongly enough, then you're going to experience that pain. On the other hand, if you believe strongly enough that that experience will not cause you any pain, you will not experience the pain, or maybe not as much of the pain. An example of that is I have a very strong reaction to flea bites. And when I get them, I usually get them on my ankle, and they itch like crazy. I mean, they're so itchy. It's all I can do to not scratch them. And as a matter of fact, I end up usually scratching them raw. Uh, you know, uh, and there's nothing I can do to get rid of the itch. So I had some flea bites on my ankle, and they're itching like crazy. And I'm driving to go teach a class, and a class where I give a lecture. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh, how am I going to stop itching long enough to give this lecture? And finally I get to the class, and I'm itching away, and then the class starts, and I start to lecture, and I don't itch at all. The focus of my attention changed from the material that I was lecturing on, changed from the itch to that. And so I no longer had the physical sensation of itching at all. Once I completed the lecture, and actually when the class sort of ended, I started to itch again. So uh, you might say that itching was make believe. And you could also say that not itching was make believe, since in both cases the itching was, a construct of my mind, and when my mind shifted its focus, then the construct changed to not itching. Uh, so I guess the bottom line is here: why does it matter if we know that reality is make believe, and that this idea that reality is an illusion has some merit? Why does that be something that we should pay attention to? Mostly because depending on how we work this, we can control to some extent some of the negative effects of our experience of reality by simply changing our attitude or our beliefs about reality. And so if one of the strongest beliefs you have is that this is real, this is everything I'm experiencing is as real as can be. That can be from the news I'm watching, which makes me feel depressed and angry, to the itching I'm feeling in my ankle, to, all of that seems to be real. And as a result of that seeming to be real, I can suffer probably more than I really need to. Once I realize that this is make believe, and that as a result, I can make adjustments in the construct. In other words, I can begin to change the way that I experience things. I can also make my life less, I can create less suffering for myself and probably create less suffering for others. Uh, so if I can change my mind, uh, which is the what do you call the origin of the experience I'm having of reality. If I can change my mind, I can change the circumstances of my experience. And if I begin to start to see the direction I would like that experience to take, I can change my entire life path by simply adjusting my mental attitude towards things. Uh, so this has value, this has use, you might say, and it's something that that we could work on. One place to work on that is in meditation. So when you're meditating, the uh, the process of meditation focuses your attention. And that's one of the key elements of a meditation practice is focused attention. And how and on what you focus your attention, in a sense, determines the reality of your meditational experience. So by learning to focus your attention on something, an object, and when you're distracted from that focus, bringing your attention back to that object, you can begin to train your mind to, to reconstruct your reality, on your non-meditation, on your, the things you do in a non-meditational way during your everyday life. Uh, you know, so uh, an example of that is waiting in line at Kroger's. I talk about this, in other talks, but that can be a very annoying thing, particularly if you have people in front of you who are dawdling, or a cashier who's maybe extraordinarily distracted and slow, or and you got a long line and you got to wait, and so you're waiting in line at Kroger's, and you could, and you've probably been trained to some extent to experience this as annoying or frustrating. And maybe a certain amount of impatience will well up, and who knows what form that might take. It could take many forms. So suppose instead of that, I talk about the use of a wrist mala that I often carry around with me. Uh, so instead of focusing your attention on this frustrating line, if you bring your attention to the beads on your wrist mala and begin to slowly move the beads through your fingers, focusing all your attention on the mala and bringing your attention to your breath, slowing your breath, making the in-breath longer and deeper, making the out-breath slower, maybe even using that 3-count breath where you breathe in a 3-count. Maybe try that now. So let's do that. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, hold. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, hold. Just trying to deepen and slow the breath, pressing the beads between your thumb and forefinger as you move them around in a circle. Uh, your focus changes from the frustrating line experience to the experience of basically meditation in a Kroger line. And as a result, the time passes more with less suffering, with less frustration, and you begin to feel a sense of calm and peacefulness from the way you're breathing and the way you're keeping your focus on the beads. So you change literally by changing the way you make construct the moment in your mind, you change the experience of suffering. So I guess what I'm saying here is that that beginning to understand that your experience of reality is really make believe, then maybe you can start to make believe things that are, that cause you less suffering and cause less harm to you and the people surrounding you. Uh, so that, that's one way of thinking about the idea that reality is an illusion. I should warn you, though, that uh, that this is often taken as a purely intellectual concept. Uh, I certainly did that in years, in the years in the past. When I read books on Buddhism and Indian philosophy, and encountered this idea of reality as an illusion, and intellectually, it's kind of interesting, but really doesn't really amount to anything really useful. Uh, what we're really working to change is the feeling that that occurs as a result of our belief about reality. We're changing the feeling by changing the belief. If we change the feeling, that reduces the aspect of discomfort and pressure and tension, and makes us basically a happier camper. So something to play with there. Some ideas. Don't take them too seriously. This is not a religious, you know, set of observations. If you don't believe this or you think it's silly, that's okay too. I'm not attached to this belief any more than any other beliefs because that doesn't really serve me well. So just saying, and I'll see you next week, or in coming weeks with another Mike's Yoga Talk, and be happy, be good.